Yeah. So,
Yeah.
oh,
So
getting a little echo. Is it on your side or mine?
it was only for a
Okay,
split
should
second.
be good. Okay. Yeah. So, like, when I tune into the technology of stargates and the realm jumping for the different realms that are overlaid for the planet that you've also unlocked into ability, there is a code in us and technology that can be synced up with that allows us to be able to transport and teleport us into realms. We have this technology as a species. We are a super hybrid. Like we are genetically, uh, we're a library of DNA that is progressing to evolve and expand itself. That is keeping whole lineages that are some are extinct and some have like put their DNA into this pool with Earth as she is like a library in herself as a planet. And
Dude, that's exactly.
expanding upon all these abilities of all these different species and putting them all into one. And we're also dealing with all that drama. You don't have to deal with just a single lineage of drama, which is dramatic in itself from what all these other species have been fighting against each other. But we have to deal with it all at once. And that is a huge limiting factor. And it's one of the biggest, hardest mystery schools to go through, which is why it's not easy to be here. And if you're able to learn it here, you can pretty much do it anywhere else, which is the whole experiment of us going through a lineage that has been here since very long ass time ago, even before the Anunnaki concept, and them introducing DNA lineages from stuff that they've collected throughout the galaxy and brought into a genetic pool of them trying to control us, but like them also not seeing the greater chess move that's been played with them, which is getting all their DNA lineage connected to us, so we unlock pretty much all these other places and accessibility with our technology. And of course, there's limitations when I track their back there. They do have introductions into our DNA, pretty much everyone that's human, and there are not just one species of humanoid, and there's many residual image types and uh, things that have been introduced to us that have purposely, even if they're like completely different than us, like an insectoid or reptoid or sea flying, all kinds of finned winged, all that, plus even polymorphic DNA, which is the DNA of trees and things like shape shifting water that is sentient, that moves, that is pretty much invisible to most people. And I've seen like this as introductions to people's DNA. Not everyone has it. A lot of people have different DNA lineages that have and it's all trackable as like a tree. But that also going into you being able to track back the light body memory of who you've been and connecting to abilities that you have transferring over this lifetime and you're getting downloading into your processing and knowingness that is coming up as like inspiration and uh, all these kind of new thoughts and ideas because you're at a greater pace of unlocking this than most people, which is shown in your work and constant like penetrating the veils into the star the Stargate concept. There's a huge amount of technology in this because it's not something that just exists in stars. It seems to be a connecting point on planets, and even we have an internal Stargate which I barely touched upon because there's so many layers to it, and there's like mechanisms you have to create to even be able to get become ready to unmanifest and remanifest your body somewhere else, which is an ability in either going on. There's many different ways to do it, like literally understanding the layers of the spin rotations of the electron clouds around your atoms and orientating them and the speed ratios, the different understanding that all energy comes from a singular point of creation and source of all energy and consciousness that as you know, like become not just alone and wanting to expand upon itself in speed, ratios, types of energy, and all alchemically syncs up together where all these different types of energy can be transmuted in and out of each other through varying processes. And you can see it as like a tree of technology. And if you understand the different layers of that technology that are required for interaction with a star, like as a stargate that allows different incarnating spirits to come in and out of a particular solar system and through the transmigration of spirits from one star to another in experiential quarantine territories for multiple planetary experiences, and also realms within that, because not all the planets in this 3D physical realm concept that we're sharing with automatically, because we're in a kind of a quarantine state, they don't usually have as many observable on-surface planetary civilizations, and mostly engage in other realms like Saturn or Jupiter, where they leave that to being their protector thing, where they can take asteroids and all these kinds of hits, and then have most of their life expression in other realms, and that can be experientially interacted with through realm jumpers such as yourself, which are engaged in a more spiritual form and using this anchor of a body to anchor here. If you're in the purpose of wanting to take your body with you, there's quite a to-do list to being able to do that. As you said, with environmental factors, we can die pretty quickly. So our future selves and a higher self chains of tree already has that perspective and wants us to be completely sure and completely ready before we even allow ourselves to enter that. We can, at this point, like you can bilocate into the sun, energetically extending a part of yourself there, interacting with one of your higher self chain tree branches that going back in, like when you as a spirit decided to come into the solar system, that one of your managers, higher selves of the different timelines that evolved to the point where it can naturally put more of itself and spirit into other incarnate experiences throughout the planets of the solar system, and then fractal down, like as you can like feel when you're in that state. You can do a lot of commerce, and doing a to-do list to get out the quarantine and be able to traverse out of the solar system is a bit. It's kind of like coming up with. There's positive gatekeepers, there's negative ones. The negative ones you can audit and be like, why do you even need to exist? The positive ones are trying to keep the timeline from getting fucked up by assholes that don't deserve technology. So if you can meet them, become friends, do their to-do list, walk through the gate, and then you can monitor it and go into like a meditative state where you feel yourself bilocating there, and you don't even need to have that sensation to have it going about, and then the energy and information transfer can still be going on, and you be learning a whole bunch of things. And it also requires a bit of a purpose, because once you get to the sun, what do you want to do? There's a bunch of realms in the sun. There's consciousness. There's a whole plethora of things that go on in the sun that aren't even touched upon. Some of it has grounding in a basis for things that we have in our reality. Some not really a vocabulary, but and then also looking for ways in which, like, we'll probably go into this in the other shows, because you're unlocking a whole bunch, and I'm also into this subject where we have the technology and keys internally to be able to access this ability to travel between realms of this planet, which is recommended to start with, because at least most of them have some type of environmental factor that can allow us to survive, which is easier than just traveling in the sun. And going on your topic, where like beings, okay, will like take a ship to the sun physically and are planning to access the Stargate going into it and know that their body isn't usually going to survive or whatever. I've tuning into that's actually happened. Most of the beings that do that don't, well, of course, don't survive, but like in spirit, they're like trying to some purpose of escaping or traveling away from the solar system, because there are some factors that keep beings from leaving the solar system easily, especially if they're not allowed to. So you could like see like negative beings trying to leave and then trying that and then failing, as well as positive beings trying that go through whatever process they need to prove that they earned it and then leave. And then also some beings that are engaged in trying to bilocate in a perspective where they can feel it at a greater level of experience and stay here while simultaneously traveling through the galaxy. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's basically all jives with the stories that I hear too. Is that, as a matter of fact, you made one point about the various entities. One of them being a insectozoid. Well, I've also taken a DMT, and in one of those trips, I took a sub-threshold dose, and I had the contact with what I perceived to be an insectozoid being. But the idea was that this whole existence was a creation of that. The reality field that we live in was created, and it appeared to be at the hands of these insectozoid beings. But there was a distinct insectozoid feel about it. You can't really, it's hard for me to say it was an entity. It's not like I was sitting here talking to someone like you know what I mean? Oh, you're an entity, man. Fucking, it was just sort of a intuitive knowing of what was going on. It's not like, but there was a distinct insectozoid vibe to go along with it. In this world we live in, there's also a distinct creative matrix aspect to go along with it. And it was after that I learned about the single digit code, and the fact that this is a matrix. This is a living holographic projection, basically, just to say that. Whatever this world is that we live in, whatever the details of it are, it was conceived and created by somebody else somewhere along the way. As a matter of fact, I've shown in some of my earlier videos is that the idea that everything that we're experiencing happened all in one instant, and the only reason we think that there's a thing called time at all is because we're just sort of recalling the episode of life that happened in a flash, or at least a template for the life happened in a flash, and our comfort level is maybe contingent upon how well we follow the guidelines that were laid out for our incarnation to begin with. So, we all have reasons for being, and maybe that's what the passion that drives us is, things that we got to learn. Because my life definitely has themes to it, man. There's things about my life that, there's a reason why I'm here, and I definitely have to learn certain aspects about that. And, healthy sexuality is a part of that, because, to learning how to control that energy and power, because the reason I had started to learn this is because I was that two-pump chump that couldn't last for more than 2 seconds. You know what I mean? Or, in some cases couldn't even get hard at all. And so I had a real fucking problem. But I didn't know it at the time, but I really did have a real fucking problem, because I was a product of this perverse, insane world, and the expectations put on men are perverse. They're insane. Men are taught to fucking fear the one thing they need to connect with most, and that is the feminine energy. I've even said in recent videos that if you want to get more masculine power, you have to first open up to more feminine power first. And actually, I cover this in the Oscar Ontario spiral, but the idea is that there is no such thing as a man. There's only a modified woman. And that's exactly what human beings are. And, you can see this in human physiology in the state of an embryo. Every embryo that's conceived starts out as a female object. And then if it's going to be a male, it turns into a male later. Well, the same exact thing happens. So really, men are the same things as women, just modified to be what we perceive as a separate entity called males, but there's really no difference. So men have the power. Men have access to the same power as women do, maybe not to the same caliber or capacity, but we definitely have the same. We can tap into the same abilities that they have, and that's part of the reason why I grow my hair like I do now. Look how my hair is fucking long as a motherfucker. I haven't cut it in 2 years, and there's definitely real powers that come with that too. With doing that, there's so part of the reason I have my hair long like I do is because there is actually something that comes with that. Because my hair was always, I never had long hair, except when I was a teenager I did, but being a teenager, I was so mentally fucking scarred from the just toxic programming of my peer group that I didn't know how to, I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to do anything. I couldn't relate to women to save my ass because I didn't know, everything to me was just like, how fast can you get with a girlfriend? And the ultimate goal was always just to start fucking right away without understanding true sexual power. So the goal was always to just engage your phallus as fast as possible and fucking blow a load with whoever it is. And that's part of the reason why we have a society that's so fucked up today, because men and women, but men especially, what happens is they meet a woman, they start having sex with her, and because he has no understanding of his sexual power or ability, fucking gets her pregnant, and then they have a kid that shouldn't have been conceived, and the cycle just perpetuates through time until you have a society like we have, just full of a bunch of mindless sheep. And we have to fix that at the root. And the root of that is cultivating a healthy respect for not only sexual energy and power, but the core of that, which is the feminine principle of beauty and health. So women should be exalted, not, number one, my work shows this in all the fractals of numbers, that the feminine principle is not only superior to the masculine, but it precedes it too. That's the thing. And that's why that series I have, God is a Woman, shows that in the number code. The number code shows you clearly and distinctly that the feminine principle precedes the masculine, and that the masculine is just a secondary. It's an important aspect, but it is a secondary aspect, most certainly and most definitely.
Oh yeah. Like when I tune into a lot of the technology, and it like goes along with a lot of what you talk about, some reason I've tuned into the tree of life for the expression of the human body as a universal remote that can be applied upon many objects. It usually
Okay.
will, if you want it to sync up well, it does in its old. It can actually be changed for an individual if they wanted to in free will, and it allows that. And of course, every chakra system in Sephiroth and all the technology we have is hijacked, and it's ultimately about unhijacking it and using it to escape the perceived reality that is so limiting, and not fear the technology, but realize how it's being used against us to use it for us, our benefit. So like I see it kind of lining up with the seven main like chakras of the body, and then like one for each shoulder. It's kind of like a cross, and then the zero being like here as an example for different. It can be synced up to see as different processors, mystery schools of the body, portal. It's like a portal to different energy spectrums that you can bring in, as well as mystery schools of like the planetary assignment. I see as like a thing where the planets all in our solar system have consciousness, and they all have a piece of the puzzle to how we manifest. If we didn't have a planet in a particular state of what it is now, we wouldn't manifest the same way. Growing up in the placenta of the void, and they kind of take up a mantle place of holding the Sephiroth in maintenance for till the growing spirits are ready to handle it. And of course, the planets are dealing with their own drama, as they are some of the most dramatic planets in the universe. And it's kind of like holding up a technology until the child is ready after crawling, ready to walk, and they are able to take that, go through that mystery school, and hold it up themselves, so they can then use it for many different things, like creating operating systems or abilities. Like, oh, if you wanted to learn how to have gravitational field control, or be able to levitate, or control your body and teleporting through time and space, or all these kind of abilities, that you can use a mystery school process of going through the different Sephiroth and the different aspects of it to see what it applies to that unique ability. Like if and it's not just those as this, if you wanted to apply to Sephiroth, because it's like the main nine, and then there seems to be an octave of like secondary. You could describe them as chakras or Sephiroth or whatever, and it'd be like I tuned into the most corresponding code is like the second octave is 72 for some reason. That's within also
Dude,
numerological code.
important.
What'd you say?
So, yeah, that's a very, very important number, 72. Very important. That shows up quite a bit, very powerfully. And I actually have one video that's called, actually a couple of them, but one of them deals with the single